What do you want to do with this amazing property?
I'll show you.
Okay.
Let's go.
Awesome.
My name is jimPgale, and for the past 14 years, I've been on a mission to show people how easy it is to grow food instead of lawns.
Well, it's a little bit whiny.
What? Yeah.
Seeds of life right here.
Magic beans.
Magic beans that turn into life. I mean, how much more magical can you get? Look at that. This is like treasure hunting. Holy snaps. Oh, the flavor comes on. My whole mouth is alive.
I closed my eyes so many times and I was like imagining the grapes here, and now I don't have to close my eyes because there are grapes here. We're in a time in a culture in which people feel so disconnected.
Yeah.
And they want to feel like you have place in the world.
Gosh, that's powerful.
And now this bat box has a place.
Yes, it does.
In the last 2 years, more people have chosen to grow food at home than any time in history.
You know, people say that the Garden of Eden is a utopic fantasy when it's the next logical step.
So if you want more abundance, more flavor, more freedom, more energy, join me in the land of plenty.
This is a wild hibiscus. You can actually eat. Nice.
You've been eating all the food. You got to share.
Share, buddy. And check out that leaf. Isn't that amazing?
I mean, I was floating 20 feet off the ground my whole life. I feel like I have something to actually contribute that is not just ego or...
Right. So would you go back?
I can't go back.
Hello, everybody. We have got a show for you today that is going to blow your mind. We are going to show you an opportunity in the world of regenerative entrepreneurship that anybody who understands what's happening around the world and wants to be part of the solution can be part of the solution. So we're going to bring in Michael Hoffman after a little bit here. Say hi, Michael.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah. Michael was featured on the Corbett Report with James Corbett not too long ago. And he's just a fantastic human being who lives off-grid in Montana. Of course, my partner, Matthew Britt. Matthew, how's it going today?
Hey, so great. Awesome to be back. Family has just moved out to 98 acres. So we've had a real busy time moving, getting settled in, and we're thrilled to have such a beautiful piece of paradise to work with, get ourselves established with a great food forest. We're going to integrate some chickens and goats and rabbits, probably some ducks and who knows what else. But we're thrilled, and it's great to be back on the show, Jim. And Michael, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Sounds like you're getting ready to live the dream out there.
Yes, sir, we are. I've already experienced a couple big storms here too, which is a gnarly experience. Power got knocked out again today, but thankfully it's back on and we get to record.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what we're all about here in permaculture, food forest abundance, and now the Freedom Farm Academy is stacking functions. So what we have is basically the summary of how we are going to inspire and empower communities to grow food by putting permaculture nurseries, what we're going to be calling Freedom Farm Academies, in every community around the world. And these the functionality of these systems are amazing. So I said to Michael, I said, well, why don't we do this on our podcast? Why don't we share all of this, not just with these billionaire investors that are coming our way wanting to help, but why don't we share this with the whole world and we inspire the whole world to be part of this solution? So Michael, why don't you jump right into it? Let's take it away and show the world what we're talking about here, because everybody on our team, since we started designing this model using permaculture principles in business, everybody says this is what we should spend the majority of our energy to create. And you'll see why very soon.
And just quickly, for anybody who is listening to our show today, we'll try to paint a picture, visually with just our words so that you can kind of wrap around what we're talking about here in your heads. or you can head over to our YouTube channel to catch the full slide presentation. But just wanted to make sure that anybody listening knew we had a visual over on YouTube.
Yes, and we're going to have it on Unite and Solutions Hub and many other also more decentralized video platforms as well.
Awesome. Thank you guys for teeing it up. And yeah, it's so amazing to be talking about this. I cannot for the life of me understand why there is not already one of these in every single community. It's the logical step. It makes sense. It's doing good for yourself and others. It's just a win from every single angle. So without further ado, let me get this thing going. So the Freedom Farm Academy, it's an original and unique brick and mortar outlet at the heart of the community. Really, the idea is that this is showcasing all of these solutions that you hear us talking about in a way that people can actually explore it and interact with it and witness it firsthand. There's a huge disconnect between hearing what a food forest is and actually walking through it and seeing, oh my goodness, you mean that's edible? This is edible? I didn't even know this grew in my area. It's such an inspirational thing to go through there and to actually see not just the best of the food security and food production world, but also looking at the best of architectural and regenerative living. And, what is the best way that this can actually be approached in my climate and in my area?
Yeah.
So,
and how this came about is so relevant. So I'm building a fully stacked food forest off-grid community here in Central Florida. And every single person that comes on one of our tours is blown away. Like every one of them becomes an advocate immediately because a food forest is the most intense sensory experience. It incorporates all of the senses. You walk through and you can feel the vibration. You can taste it and smell it and touch it. It's just amazing. So that's why bringing these to your community, is what is going to change the world. I was talking to Lori, the producer for Dr. Andy Wakefield's new movie, which we're helping out with big time. And she's like, oh my gosh, everybody needs to see this, because all paths to lasting freedom must include decentralization of food, water, and energy. And we're going to show you exactly how to do it right here.
That's great, Jim. And yeah, it's when you get the community engaged that way, and really we've got something here for all ages. So it's a really incredible thing to form these connections, and everyone who's coming there is going to be inspired through a different lens, and the connections that are going to be formed here, it's really acting as a central hub for the community to make a network of freedom-loving people. So we all know the turmoils that could happen with the supply chains on various levels. And by making these connections sooner rather than later, we create a community of people who can support each other when the supply chain can't. So extremely important. So on the screen, we've got a little bit of a rendering here that really highlights the idea. But a big part of why this came about too is because when Food Forest Abundance first started, and we've grown explosively, really, our design team, our installers, we've all noticed the same areas of opportunity. And that's that when we're coming to do an installation, oftentimes there's just not quality soil fertility in the area. There's not great compost that we can source. And with the food security being top of mind for a lot of people, sometimes the best plants for the area or the most hardy perennials are hard to come by. So there's this huge gap in the market, and that's what we're seeking to fill here, and seeking to make it a reality where you don't just have the design, but you can put this in on your own yard. So the rendering that we've got here represents a half-acre property, and that's including the parking lot all the way up to the road. So really, when you're looking at what we've got going on here, it represents about a quarter-acre property with all of the elements on it, if you're taking out that parking lot. And really, that connects very well to the average suburban yard. And it also connects well to our offerings as a company for what we can design to you. That's really the base layer of a food forest design, is our quarter-acre package. And so just seeing the symphony of elements on this graphic, you can really think about how many different things you can fit into one area and just how well they can all work together. Nothing here is fighting against each other. It's all working well to help you be self-reliant.
Can you just read through that list of what all of the things that are in this particular image here, Mike?
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure. So starting from the top, we've got a bulk material center there, and that would distribute soil amendments as well as mulch, which forms a valuable top layer for your food forest system.
And I'll jump in on this. So right now, to get wood chips, for instance, you either have to go to chipdrop.com and hope that they deliver, or you have to go in and take a truck or have a delivery brought to you somewhere else. And usually it's on the outskirts of town, it's far away, and it's expensive. So what we're going to offer is a service that benefits everybody. When a tree trimming company is in the area, they're looking for a place to dump their extra wood chips. So we give them that place, which then becomes the place where the community can come and get these wood chips at a massive discount, even for free in a lot of cases.
Yeah, that's a huge point, because especially where I am living in Montana, Western Montana, pretty far off the beaten path, it was impossible for me to get a chip drop out here. And there really weren't many local providers of materials. So I was having to kind of apply some guerrilla tactics of pulling over when I see the guys trimming trees near the power lines and say, hey, where are you guys planning on dumping that? Why don't you bring it down this way? So yeah, these tree trimming services are actually paying to dispose of their mulch, which is just gold. It's so valuable. So yeah, it's just a no-brainer. Number two, we've got the structure itself, which would act as the main point of sale. And that's really going to highlight, as I was alluding to before, the best natural building methods and materials for the area. So utilizing rainwater catchment, solar to power it, passive solar orientation for heating, and geothermal tubes to cool down the building. There's just so many things we can do to make this thing really run itself from that perspective. And within it, it'll house a seed bank of hardy local stock, which is extremely important. I mean, you cannot compare something that has been produced from several years of land racing a crop and harvesting the best seeds, the best ones that you get. You form such amazing, hardy, productive, incredible plants versus something that you would just say, go down to your local hardware store and pick up. There's just absolutely no comparison. So it's a huge community service there. We would also sell affiliate products. So what we mean by that are actual compost brewing kits or solar kits. We can help connect every single element that people are seeing here and help them get it onto their property.
And we don't have to have inventory. We simply collaborate with people who are in the market who have all of these different systems, but they're looking for a place to bring them to market. And customers are looking for these systems more now than ever in history. So now we become affiliates where the owner of this Freedom Farm Academy might get a 15% commission, but all they have to do is help facilitate the sale.
And that's extremely important, because really what we're talking about is keeping up with that decentralization. We don't want to take over everything. There are people who are amazing rainwater experts in your local community and amazing solar experts. And so if we can just bridge those connections and let them shine where they're already shining, it's a win for everybody.
Except for a couple people, but we want them to lose.
No kidding. And so, yeah, within it, it's also got a farm stand, so we can sell some of the local produce, especially the seasonally available, more rare and exotic stuff that, like I said, people have no idea that it even exists, much less that it grows in their area.
I heard a stat, something around us knowing roughly 200 fruits and vegetables that we can consume. Meanwhile, there's somewhere around 200,000 edible plants. Isn't that just mind-boggling how we're just cut out from so many of them because they don't fit into the factory farming, industrialized food infrastructure?
The sad thing is, I guarantee you, you stop your average person on the street, you ask them to list 200 edible vegetables and fruit, they wouldn't get anywhere near it.
I would be surprised if they got 30.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing what's out there that we don't know, but that's our job. And our opportunity is to help shine a light on the truth of what's possible for society.
And it's truly let food be thy medicine, right? If we have these 200,000 different things that are all beneficial in different ways to human health, clearly we are missing a huge portion of nature's medicine cabinet.
And that's exactly what Freedom Farm Academy aims to do, is bridge that educational gap. That's another huge gap in the market that I failed to mention a moment ago, is that educational piece, especially hands-on in the community. There's no substitute for that.
People think that it's hard to grow food. And that is one of the biggest scams, mass brainwashing scams of all time. They think it's easy to grow a lawn, but it's hard to grow a fruit tree. Well, we're going to show you that it's not only not easy to grow a lawn, but growing lawns, the pesticides and chemicals and human resources, there's more human resources and poisons that go into a lawn that doesn't provide food for humans than into any other crop. And so we're going to change that whole paradigm by demonstrating it, right, buddy?
And we're kind of going off in a different direction here just for a second. You know, we've got these nitrogen regulations that are, the nitrogen fertilizer regulations that are coming down against the current Dutch farmers. And that stuff is also being unveiled here in Canada, which will impact the Canadian farmers. And it's going to be absolutely catastrophic, right? And they're saying they're doing this to protect the environment and climate change and all of that stuff. And if that was the case, wouldn't they also be saying, hey, guy with your gigantic sweeping lawn who fertilizes it every other week with nitrogen-based fertilizers and chemicals and all of this stuff, you need to convert that immediately into growing some food because, oh, we're having an issue with all the diesel that it takes to ship food hundreds or thousands of miles across, countries to get to your table. So, it's time to make those shifts as well. But clearly, that's not what they're doing. That's not what they care about, right? It's a narrative that, again, is false and they're misleading people. But it's this, again, Mike, as you've mentioned many times, this is the solution to those problems.
Well, it also exposes really the lack of knowledge and thought that's gone into farming practices to date, because we're talking about nitrogen here, which there are plants out there that will fix nitrogen into the soil. They will pull it out of the air and act as a living fertilizer system. So when you've got monocultures that are devoid of nitrogen fixing plants, you're going to need that supplementation. But when you're engineering a food forest, looking at biomimicry and what nature's already providing, it's a lasting regenerative system that doesn't even require those inputs.
And isn't that outstanding, right? Nature working in harmony with nature to do what it does best, produce abundance.
That's awesome. So yeah, those types of plants are what would be included in the perennial nursery, which we'll have on site as well. And we've got the rainwater harvesting, like I talked about, on the building, a beautiful pond and aquaculture demonstration site, the learning opportunities that I talked about, both indoor and outdoor classrooms, as well as the elements themselves. I mean, the food forest is a classroom. The annual Freedom Garden is a classroom. It's a space for you to learn and explore in. There are optional things that we've included here. Obviously, not every community is going to permit it, but the fact that we could have chickens on site, have some laying hens, show how that can integrate with everything. Hens are the Swiss Army knife of the homestead. They form valuable pest prevention. They help to break down compost and provide soil fertility. And of course, you get the output of eggs, which you can feed to your animals, you can feed to yourself, you can sell and make a buck. So it's just an amazing tool right there.
I love that, the Swiss Army knife of the homestead.
Yeah. And they're incredible heaters. So you can use the hands to heat your greenhouse and keep it above freezing when it's 10 below outside.
No kidding. I'm still amazed that we can have hens out here that do just fine in our -30. They get in the building, and as long as you've got a well-insulated coop for them, they're going to be just perfectly fine. You'd be more comfortable in with them. So we've also got the food forest products, like I was talking about in terms of produce, an apiary on site, a greenhouse for annual veggie propagation, as well as an outdoor nursery for the perennial propagation. We've got the annual Freedom Garden, which I was just talking about, which is actually a new product that we're getting to roll out, which is absolutely amazing. And I think we'll talk about in greater depth in a moment. But I mean, really, it's looking at the immediate year one strategy for how you can provide for yourself and your family. And of course, the compost tea brewer and outdoor farmers market area.
And I would like to go into detail. I'll pick the compost tea brewer. Let's look at the value that this system can bring to the community. So if you go online right now and you type in purchase compost tea, I just did this yesterday, and it was $30 a gallon for compost tea. Now, compost tea is awesome. Everybody should have compost tea on their plants, especially in the beginning. So how much does it cost to produce a gallon of compost tea, right? Well, if you've got a 50-gallon rain barrel and you've got rainwater catchment, which we will have on our greenhouse and on our buildings, then you got rows of 50-gallon barrels. You put your compost in there, which is simple, which, by the way, the community will be encouraged to bring their compost to our site. So that's another thing. So instead of the waste being put in the garbage and in landfills, we will turn that waste into food, even plastic jugs. So we will encourage the community to bring a compost and their leftover milk jugs and orange juice jugs that have seals on them. And then we'll fill up these compost tea barrels. We will bubble a 50-gallon barrel of compost tea, and we will be able to sell that for an 80% discount and still have the 90% profit margin. Like, that's incredible. And the most important part of that, at least relative to our mission and vision, is we are going to help this community grow food.
I love it. That was a perfect segue into really the first and most important aspect in my mind of demonstrating freedom on the site. And that is the perennial food forest. So if anybody doesn't know what a food forest is, it's time you heard about it. Where have you been hiding? Because food forests are the solution. They are the long-term ultimate food system. And to just put it in a nutshell, what it is again, looking at biomimicry. So we're looking to mimic the perfection of nature and steward it for human purposes. So it is a permanent, perennial, regenerative food system that is going to take as much maintenance as the forest and out in your neighborhood takes to maintain. So it just gets better and better over time, and nature does its thing, right? It evolves, it gets better. The plants that don't work out so well, they're going to withdraw, and the plants that are excelling there are going to expand. And you're just going to get food on 7 different layers that we will design for you.
I got about 94 acres of forest on my property now, and no one has spent a second out there trying to take care of them in that way, and they're thriving.
Yeah, if anything, you kind of have to dial it back a little bit, right? So that there's room for you, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, the attack of the strawberry plants.
It's a good problem to have. So yeah, the food forest itself, though, it also yields many things, right? It's a place where we can get people who are interested in designs, and we can help design them for success rather than just having them, kind of take a shotgun approach, which sadly I see a lot of homesteads do, where they get into it too fast. They put things where it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't close energy loops on the property. Either they get too many animals and they're having to buy too much feed to take care of them. And it's not working synergistically the way that it should. So we help prevent people through our knowledge of our own failures and our own process of getting better. And of course, the food forest is actually acting as a nursery too. Every time we go through and we're pruning those trees, many of them could be air layered, and they can be used to propagate more of the same plants. Elderberry is a phenomenal example of that. You can take a little elderberry stick and just pop it in the ground, and man, that thing is going to take off. And the hands-on education, just completely invaluable. I mean, so much there. So the annual Freedom Garden itself is that applied strategy to provide for your immediate needs within a single season. And what I mean by that is the perennial plants often take a few years to really become very productive, especially when we're talking about the canopy, the fruit trees. If you're getting a really young tree, it's going to take a couple of years to get a yield off that. So with the precarious situation that the supply chain is in at the moment, annual crops are really the best way to bridge that gap for your immediate food needs. And what we do is we've got a list of plants that we will tailor for your area. Look at the polyculture, how those can be planted together in rows, not just doing monocultures. We don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past. And we're selecting them for their macronutrient profile. We want them to be rich in carbohydrates and proteins and fats, and their storability. That's extremely relevant for someone like me who lives up in Montana. We've got a short window that we are actively harvesting food out of the ground. So to have stuff that you can store and have at your disposal over the winter is extremely important. The entire space will be surrounded by fencing, which will act as trellises for vining plants. So that's what we like to think of in permaculture as far as stacking functions, because this is going to form both a functional barrier to keep out the riffraff and the pest pressure and the deer from taking more than their fair share. And it's also forming a vineyard of vining plants that we can just witness their beauty and get a yield off of.
And these things can work in northern climates as well, right? You're Montana. I'm up in the Canadian climate. These things can work there as well, right?
Absolutely. There's so many people. I'm in zone 4A, and really the attitude here is just what you can't grow. You can't do this. You can't do that. And when I tell people that you can grow hardy kiwi, it blows their mind. You could have kiwi along your fence line. You could have grapes along your fence line in zone 4. You could have hops climbing up it. I mean, there's several different things you could use on a food fence.
My buddy Chad Johnson on the tip of Lake Superior in Minnesota, northern Minnesota, has 8 different types of kiwi, all the different types of grapes. He has 300 different types of food growing on his property. So anybody who thinks that cold weather is prohibitive, no, you just need the right plants that are adapted to that type of climate.
Another feature, which might sound like a small thing that maybe it doesn't deserve the highlight, but I think it does, is an herb spiral. An herb spiral is beautiful. It fits in the most compact lawns. And what it is it's a cascading spiral. So if you think of a cone structure going up, you can have different medicinal and culinary herbs that have different soil conditions or preferences for soil conditions. So the stuff at the bottom, where all of that water flows down, are plants that like to have wetter feet. They like that extra moisture. The stuff at the top can have a little bit more drainage, can prefer a little bit more arid conditions. So it's a way to really pack a whole bunch of amazing plants that would normally have to be really spread out into one small, beautiful feature. There's also a lot of the homestead elements that we talked about, which are extremely important for maximizing your abundance, maximizing your productivity. And I can't think of a better example for that than an apiary. Having locally sourced bees out there pollinating your plants, making the fruit come in, and also providing honey. It's just an amazing thing. If you've got the space for it, it's just perfect to do. And if you don't have the space for it, or if you're a little reluctant to maintain that, you can actually provide habitat for mason bees, which are more of a wild bee. You're not going to be getting that yield of honey, but they're actually superior when it comes to pollinating. So you're still reaping amazing benefits from that.
Right. And everybody out there knows that we need to protect the bees. We need more bees in our society. And these solitary bees, they can produce up to 100 or pollinate up to 100 times more flowers, in a day than maybe a honeybee, but they're solitary, where a honeybee will come in thousands, right? But yes, in fact, we just ordered 2 more beehives on our property. So we're going to have one at the north end, one at the south end, and one in the middle. I am so excited about that.
I've actually got a family member who I will not call out, but there was recently an educational opportunity because she was spraying for clovers to discourage bees from coming onto the yard. She didn't want the kids to step on them. And it was like, why would you do that? The bees are so amazing. It's a learning lesson to be more mindful. They're not allergic to the bees. They're going to learn real quick. But they need that. They need that extra habitat. And clovers are also extremely valuable too. They're edible, they're nitrogen fixers. So it was a great little learning lesson and opportunity for everyone. On site, there's going to be a vermicompost bin, and Jim did a fantastic job talking about the compost tea brewer. But worm castings are just another amazing layer for soil fertility, and a really great system that you don't only get the soil fertility out of it, but we're looking at multiple outputs. So if you've got hens on site, the worms themselves provide a valuable source of protein for your birds.
When you say worm castings, you mean worm poop?
Worm poop. That is actually, worm poop is the more scientific term. I just didn't want to confuse anybody. So the water feature on site, there's nothing better than just sitting by the water side. So it's important. It's important for spiritual currency, just enjoying that, taking in the ambiance, and also the land is the best place that you can capture and store water. Think about the footprint of your land versus the footprint of your roof. So if we can look at the landscape, look at employing techniques such as keyline design to divert water and capture it into the dirt, to direct it into a pond, it's just such an amazing thing. And especially if you're relying on an electric pump or you're relying on a public utility, say, to provide your water, to have that emergency backup supply is extremely important.
Sure, real quick about our pond at Galt's. We dug out a pond 25 feet deep. We used that material to build up our housing lots. And now we just added aeration this week. We've got our irrigation system. So we're dropping a pipe down. We're hanging it from these two goose decoys. And it's a pipe with a lot of slits in it. And what that pipe is going to fill up with water, we're going to use that water to fertigate the food forest around the pond. Fertigate is to fertilize and irrigate at the same time, which is like aquaponics. It's incredibly productive and produces an incredible yield. On top of that, we planted a bunch of trees around the pond, and when those fruit fall in the pond, they are eaten up by worms and bugs and bacteria, which become fish food. So it's a closed loop cycle that will just produce more and more and more abundance over time.
Sounds like there's been a lot of thoughtfulness put into this design. And I think that people need to understand that everything about permaculture is thought about in that way. How do you stack the functions of what's going on your property?
It's so important. The idea of fertigation, that's such a great highlight, because when you're looking at a larger property, you might think a livestock pond could just go anywhere. But if you actually put it up at elevation and you plant things that are going to attract the livestock to poop around uphill, and even if it isn't the pond itself, you can actually just get them to graze uphill. And their manure that's sitting there, when the rains come in, it's going to wash it downhill, and you end up planting downhill to capture all of those nutrients. So that extra layer of thought just goes such an incredible way to creating a regenerative system.
It's crazy. We've got 7 different types of fish, snails and crayfish, along with all of these different types of plants that are edible water plants. We're even planting plants that the dragonflies like laying their larvae, their eggs in, and then dragonflies are mosquito killers. So people think that ponds create mosquitoes. No, they don't, unless they're dead ponds. Dead ponds that have been sprayed and then the chemicals start to wear off. That's where mosquitoes live. Mosquitoes do not breed in ponds that have fish in them. So you got to stack them with fish and everybody wins.
Yep. If you've got mosquitoes, bring in the dragonflies, bring in the bats. They're going to take care of that for you. There's also the homestead elements that are extremely important. Like I said, if you're thinking about planning for storability, well, you need somewhere to store your food, right? So a root cellar is the refrigerator of our forefathers. So having that on site, having someone walk out of the Florida or the Texas heat down into a root cellar and this amazing, cool, steady temperature, it's kind of a magical experience. If you've never been in a caverns or something like that, it's just really incredible to, first you feel the cool if you're going into a cavern, and then it warms back up. So getting those different layers, it's really something. So the building itself, again, it's going to highlight those natural building materials, things like hempcrete, like straw bale, adobe construction, using that soils that some people find undesirable for growing in actually make amazing building materials. So really looking at the location that this thing is going to be put in and just highlighting the best of the best, highlighting the experts who are doing this. And it's not just about saving the earth and having a non-toxic environment, but oftentimes these materials perform a heck of a lot better than the modern synthetic stuff that houses are being built with these days.
A lot of people may not be familiar with what you said there, the hempcrete. And I think that's one of the reasons why this stuff was really suppressed for so long. It's obviously a very renewable resource. Hemp grows extremely fast. You can cycle it every 3 months. But when you mix it a certain way and you to build out hempcrete, which mimics concrete essentially, it's lighter, it's stronger, it's more resilient, and will last significantly longer. And you don't have to take sand, which we're currently pulling from all over the world to make concrete. And we're experiencing serious issues environmentally from all the sand that we pull away from the oceans. This is a solution to that. And it's an incredible product that can be used in plastics even. There's just so many additional benefits to hemp as a plant. And then to utilize it in building material. And
it performs better than the sand does. It allows the structure to breathe. It purifies the air. It's just incredible. Yeah, if you guys are familiar with Max Egan, he says something about hemp or cannabis that has always stuck in my mind, and that's that it's mankind's companion plant. It provides food, it provides medicine. You can make paper, you can make clothes, you can make building structures. It helps to pull toxins out of the soil. It's a great pioneer plant. It's just an amazing thing. And yeah, there's no wonder it was suppressed for so long.
It has a vibrational resonance with the human body. We have an endocannabinoid system in our body that has been neglected by design for over 100 years. So there's something you feel the difference when you're in these types of structures.
Yeah, we don't have receptors for that specific plant in our body as an accident. Nature doesn't have accidents or mistakes like that. It's there for a reason. And what this structure, what Freedom Farm Academy is going to do is use that permaculture principle of stacking functions and do it in a way to create profit for the community, for the owners, for food forest abundance, for everybody. We're doing good, we're giving it back, and we're helping out the community with so many different layers. So some of just the points that this is coming from are not just the consultation and design, but the area. We want it to be inspiring, again, for all ages, having a children's area in there with ready-to-eat forage. There's a lot of plants out there that are fantastic for food forests that are not always ready to eat raw. So that area is focused on forage that they can safely enjoy. And it really makes a destination for families to return to again and again. The first time I took my son foraging, really the first time he was old enough to enjoy it was last year. And we went out and we were getting huckleberries and thimbleberries, service berries, there was elderberry, all kinds of stuff. Ripe and ready in season at one time, and just seeing the way he would light up. He was 3 years old at the time. It's like magic. The first time they just pick something that's growing out in nature and eat it. And he took it so seriously from there. He got more berries than any of us, was collecting them in a little hat. It was just magic to watch. So if we can bring that experience to people in a way that they can just show up on a regular basis and not have to go through the legwork of finding the best spot in your local forest. I mean, that's such a value in and of itself.
One of the things that people often overlook when picking their own food fresh from the ground or from a tree is the life force energy that's still within that plant. When we buy things at a store, it's depleted of nutrients and energy. The life force is gone, right? And it shows in how our health is impacted by our current food system. And if you're able to grow your own food, which we know everybody really is, and you take that from plant to your mouth and into your body, and you're actually getting not only the nutrients, but the life force energy that's in there, just imagine what that begins to do with your health over time. The improvements that you will feel, the energy uptick the vitality that's now going to be flowing through your veins because you're taking what nature is providing and immediately bringing it into you.
Yeah, it's like eating sunlight. It's just so powerful that you can feel the nourishment in your body because it's a joyful experience. As my daughters too, they're crazy about picking berries and squash and all the different things from the garden. It's so much fun.
Well, yeah, your taste buds just light up the first time you have it. I remember the first time I had actual ripe off the tree cherries. There is no comparison with just how juicy they are, how much moisture, how much flavor is in them versus those things that are picked unripe and travel in a truck and sit on the shelf at your grocery store. It's not the same fruit. And to your point, Matt, I think spinach loses something like 90% of its vitamin C within 24 hours of harvest. So nurturing the community is really the forefront of what Freedom Farm Academy is about. Through Food Forest Abundance, we've attracted world-renowned experts, just people at the top of the top in their field. And what we're doing is distilling their amazing body of work into curriculums through our in-house education program. And beyond just utilizing those global experts, we also want to connect on the local level, permeating into the local gardening communities through master gardener programs. And those are generally served out of your local extension office at colleges. So that's a perfect way to get people who maybe their experience up to date has just been in amazing Victorian style gardens, and they're master gardeners at creating these spaces, but they have no idea about the possibility of a food forest. And so when you get people to look at gardening in a new way, look at how they can be stewards of their land in a new way, we're going to set that spark in the community. And they're going to teach their friends. Their friends are going to teach their friends. It's going to spread out organically from there, which is, I'm just excited to watch it happen.
It sounds a lot like we're teaching people to fish and teaching them how to teach others to fish as well.
Boom.
Exactly right. Yeah, there's an example that I like when thinking about soil fertility that actually one of our designers and our mad scientist at Food Forest Abundance, Mike Jones, used. And he equated using NPK on a garden to doing your kids' homework for them. Because you're not, sure, you might get good grades, but it's not training the soil. And the nutrition, people think they're putting NPK on their garden and it's feeding the plants. No, it's getting those nutrients into the soil. So if we're actually putting something like compost tea and we're introducing mycorrhiza and introducing real beneficial microorganisms in the soil, that is the education. So that's exactly what we're seeking to do here. And with that, the education isn't just going to be this high-end, irrigation master level courses. Yes, we will offer that. Yes, we will offer Freedom Garden courses, but we also want to make gardening accessible and growing food accessible for the less able in the community. And again, for the youth of the community. And by tapping into all ages, what we're doing is addressing the problems of today. We're changing people's minds who are out there as consumers, voting with their dollars, voting with their choices between good and evil every single day throughout the day. And we're also planting seeds in the youth for a brighter tomorrow. So something as simple as bringing kids into the garden to paint some pebbles red and keep the pests out of your strawberry patch, just getting their hands in the dirt, it's the most exciting thing, and it creates a lasting impression. Really, what I see this is almost an unlearning facility. It's a remembering facility. It's allowing people to remember what it is to be human. Because
Wow.
They don't need to remember.
Awesome. That is so relevant. One of my favorite shirts is unlearn. So keep going on that, Michael. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's just we've become so disconnected from nature. We've forgotten what it is to be human. What animal do you see thriving out in nature that doesn't know where to find its own food, doesn't know the best way to make its own shelter? We've forgotten these valuable life skills, I would argue by design, through the education/indoctrination systems that have been pervaded over the recent memory of mankind. And we need to come full circle back to remembering that there's no lie in nature, remembering that the solutions are out there if we would just go out and explore them.
You mean we don't try to isolate the animal from each other out in nature so they can feel well with their mask on?
They actually are making burp masks and things like that to capture the emissions from livestock. I mean,
all the smart people,
insanity.
Oh my God. Yeah. All right. Keep going. That's amazing. We do a lot of podcasts on that whole thing.
I'm sure you do. It deserves it. It deserves its time in the limelight. Jim, do you think I should go through the numbers here a bit?
Yes, go through them and I'll add some layers onto them. These are just projections. We don't guarantee anything because that's not the way the world works. What we guarantee is best effort to change the world. And we know that all paths to freedom must include decentralized, local, regenerative, poison-free agriculture. Now, the other thing that we're doing, which is very different, we were looking at the different models of how to bring this to the world. Our job at FFA is to shine a light, as big a light as we possibly can. My personal job, my name is jimPgale, and I'm like the wind, right? My last name is Wind. And I am trying to do my best to blow the fire of freedom and spread ideas as seeds as to what we can do to catalyze a shift in consciousness that leads to mass adoption of this most logical thing. So with that said, we don't have 300-page contracts. We have 2-page contracts, and they speak to the voluntary exchange of value. What we can run this entity through a 501c3, through a 508, through a normal corporation. We can do this in a multitude of different ways. FFA receives 5 to 7% of the gross income that's produced. And in exchange for that, we shine a big light and we create the design teams and the systems and the product affiliations and all these different benefits. So everybody wins except for those few people who we really need to lose.
Well, and I think it's really important to understand the context around value, right? The more value you add to the marketplace, the more value you get back. So if the fiat currency system happens to disappear, or the financial system as we know it today changes, you're still adding tremendous value to the marketplace, and you can expect to get tremendous value back. What that shows up as, we don't know. But it's still value, and value is what our currency today is, right? We have a stored value in it, or perceived value, that you can go exchange X dollars for X product value back. Now we're looking at something different in this regard. How valuable is food? How valuable is teaching your children about how to grow food? How valuable is collecting the free energy from the sun? How valuable is collecting that rainwater, that free water that's pouring down on us, and utilizing it to make compost tea? You know, the list goes on and on. The value here is unquantifiable, in my opinion. So you can count for sure that you're going to get a lot of that value back to you.
That's so important. What value means has just been so lost in our society these days. Everyone thinks it means money. But if you don't have true values, true morals, true understanding of the value of, like you said, the fact that the sun is providing life and that we can harness that.
Yes. Productivity. The productivity of humanity is becoming like a parasite, is sucking the productivity out of the system by gambling on the assets and the business and the love that we put into the world, and then controlling that. This takes all the power and brings it back to the communities. Every community that has one of these systems will go up in value because there will be value produced within the community.
Very well put. Yeah, the numbers that we're going to get into here in terms of the projections for money, that is just one of the values being produced here. The conscious capital is just one of them. There are so many different regenerative resources being produced on site. So with our half-acre model, how Jim so eloquently put, no two of these are going to look alike. can you imagine the one in Maine looking like the one in Texas or the one in Montana? They would be completely different. And if you've got a half-acre site versus an acre or more, the possibilities are just completely, endless for what you could do to really highlight your community in the best way. So our projection was based off of that rendering of a half acre, and we looked at national averages to generate the setup cost for all of these different elements. And the entire operation, including land acquisition and some other amazing layers, which Jim's going to help share after this, is that about $1 million. And that's just to set this thing up. And a percentage of that is going to go into some amazing campaigns that I would love for Jim to tell you guys about.
Okay. So right away, we are partnered with Tim Dillard and his team. They are world-class marketers who have done many billions of dollars, and they are into freedom. They understand what's going on in the world right now, and they want to help, and they see us and our Freedom Farm Academy and Food Forest Abundance as a critical piece of the freedom puzzle. So we're going to, the $1 million, about 5% is going to go to marketing, and they are going to geomap and make sure that everybody in their area knows what's going on at that park or at that Freedom Farm Academy location. Then, and that's really exciting. Then this part to me is where it really brings it all home. We are going to send our team. We've got over 40 incredible permaculture designers who will design these individual systems based on the zone and the property and all the different elements that we will consider in the permaculture process. And we will then send our install team, our education team, to each location, and they will train the Freedom Farm Academy operator. And by the end of that month, not only will there be a mega food forest in the ground, but the operator will have the experience, firsthand knowledge by a professional, and they will be PDC, which is permaculture design certified. And so everyone will be able to design from on site. And it's so relevant when a community member can come in and see a living system that's based on the plants that already grow well in that system, and then to design their own property, which might be right across the street, or it might be 5 blocks away or 3 miles away, right? So it localizes all of the energy in the food production and the decentralization of these systems.
And these systems are really set up for success. So the first year fiscal profit that we're looking at, and this is talking about net, not gross. So this is minus all of the costs to maintain these systems, minus the salaries involved with it. The actual profit on the first year conservatively, we like working with conservative numbers. We're not trying to blow some dust your way. It's going to be $217,000. And that would be a payoff of about 4.5 years with absolutely zero growth considered. So if you think about the growth that would happen the first time someone walks in there and feels inspired and wants to bring a friend or tells a family member or tells their colleagues or people at their church, it's going to grow exponentially. So with just a very measly 10% growth rate, year 3, that net income ramps up to $262,000. Year 5, almost $320,000. And year 10, all the way up to a whopping $511,000. So more than $500,000 of profit within 10 years from this little half-acre site.
And by year 20, we want to work ourselves out of a business, because by year 20, there's going to be food growing everywhere. Everybody's going to be decentralized. Things are going to be much more stable and sustainable and regenerative. And that's the goal of our entity, right? We will always, of course, become more efficient and learn new things about how to do new things. And then we will pivot into creating new layers of abundance to the best of our abilities. But it's so powerful. Michael, I just want to say thank you. Position to succeed. Okay, go ahead. I want to hear this one.
Yeah, so it's not only positioned to succeed from a financial aspect, but we're here, as Jim said, to help with the ongoing success of this. So not only the initial and ongoing marketing support, But what Food Forest Abundance is doing right now is amazing. We are quickly setting ourselves up to be a household name. And so the awareness that we're raising to connect people and for them to drive by and see, wait a minute, Freedom Farm Academy, is that Food Forest Abundance? That we have a location represented there. It's going to be invaluable. And as Jim said before, the 40 designers, we've got 40 designers in 8 different countries serving customers around the world. So our network is just expanding. We've got over 140 cooperative installers in various countries throughout the United States, Canada, and everywhere else. We've got 900 plus abundance ambassadors.
We're very close to 1,000. I checked today. We're like 12 away.
There you go. And Matt's the guru there to talk about that program. But it's an amazing way that people can receive a reward. They can get thank you by us. We can say thank you through a little bit of money, sharing that profit by helping to spread the mission, by helping to get designs happening and to get food forests planted in the ground. And so they're helping to spread our message organically through their personal connections.
Yes. And what I'd like to do, Matthew, is ask Mike, our kind of developer producer for the show, to put in the Land of Plenty trailer. So what we have is the most incredible marketing team. I like to call them an inspired marketing team. There's several Emmy Award winners that are within our team that are using their talents to bring these solutions to the world. So the amazing people that are coming to put some of their cash into propagating these systems all over the place. I would like to also share that putting the TV show, The Solution and the Land of Plenty in as part of the package, I think it'd be a no-brainer, because can you imagine better marketing than going into these amazing communities with movie stars that are good, the good ones, and all these amazing people, and putting these systems in the ground and explaining to the community, educating, teaching the community about how this system can be used by them to create wellness and health and joy throughout their lifetimes.
And that's how we reach the masses. I mean, the audience that we're speaking to today, I imagine, knows a thing or two about what's going on in the world. But there are so many people who don't. So when they see a face that they recognize, or they switch to their favorite channel or go on their favorite streaming platform and they see the Land of Plenty, it's, again, making it a household name. It's making this commonplace where up to date permaculture has been kind of a fringe idea. Most people haven't really heard about it. So we're really distilling that vast knowledge and body of work that has been permaculture up to date. I mean, we're standing on the shoulders of giants and presenting it in a format that can be delivered to the layperson. And that is how we get that mass adoption.
That's so huge. And I want to point out too that we launched on Earth Day last year. So we're only 15 months in, and we've experienced this type of global growth. We're now designing whole cities that are coming up, alluvial tidal cities, free cities, and all these different types of designs. So it's really, the timing of this is absolutely perfect. And I've got to run to a podcast right now. So I'm going to jump off and let Michael and Matthew finish. But I just want to say, if this is of interest to you, then please reach out to me, and we can be very creative. We're designers. So if you have a specific way that you would like to put 1 or 10 or 100 of these systems into the ground, we will help you do that according to how you'd like to do that. You know, ethically is our foundation, and I'm sure that that's why you're calling anyway. So everybody, thank you. I've got to run to a podcast I'm a couple minutes late for. Love, have an awesome day, and I'll talk with you soon.
Thanks so much, Jim.
All right.
Thanks, Jim. So yeah, the media publications are a huge part. And I also have to tip my hat a little bit to Matt and Jim here on the jimPgale show. With just 2 episodes, they've already reached tens of thousands of people, which is just incredible to me.
We're blown away, actually. Episode 2, inside 48 hours, had about 9,600 views just on YouTube. So things are moving quickly. Clearly, we are speaking about things that people are ready to hear and receive. And I'm very grateful to be a part of this show and look forward to impacting millions and millions of people around the world as we continue to grow our audience and bring better and better, just people onto the show and more value to everyone who's listening.
And this whole thing, the Freedom Farm Academy, what it's about is building a legacy of freedom. So right now we are at a point in history that is a real tipping point. And we know that history is always written by the winners, right? So the books are still being written right now. And by supporting Freedom Farm Academy, what you're doing is cementing your name into the right side of history. We know we're going to win this. We know that we're going to come out on top. So we want to honor those who support this movement and carry on their name with that legacy of fighting for health and freedom within the community.
You think about, sorry to jump in there, you think about like schools and universities and that kind of stuff that end up naming classrooms or halls or auditoriums or whatnot after, a great graduate of that school or institution. This is something similar, right? We could have your name prominently featured on one of these Freedom Farm Academies and have your legacy be cemented in really helping build the value for the future that is already here for everybody. It's just been buried. So, if this is speaking to you in a way that it's making you say, hey, I have resources, I have financial means, or I have land available, or I know someone who does, reach out to us. As Jim mentioned, get in contact with us because we do have one of the best solutions to many of the world's problems. And it is a very simple solution. These problems are getting more and more complex, at least on the surface, they appear to be. But as the late Bill Mollison says, the solutions do remain embarrassingly simple. And this is a very simple solution. And it's something that can be utilized by anybody who gets it to get this information into the hands of the most people, add the most value possible by stacking the functions, working with nature, and bringing this into a community. And you're immediately going to see the health of that community improve, the mental health of people in that community improve. I would bet to say chronic disease going through a bit of a decline as people are getting healthier foods right from Mother Nature, from plant to mouth, and on and on. The benefits are just tremendous, and it's something that you can be proud to have your name on, and the legacy will last for generations to come. And as Michael said, the books are still being written, and we're going to write them because we're going to win.
Yes, we are, Matt. And yeah, I do hope you will reach out if you've got some resources or connections here, or you even just know a good spot, because just as no two Freedom Farm Academies are going to look identical, they're also not going to operate identical. There's flexibility as far as, is it going to be on purchase land? Is it going to be leased? Is it going to be sharing land with a church or a community center? We're open to forming those win-win partnerships. And oftentimes there are wonderful freedom-loving organizations and community groups that do have an extra acre or an extra half acre. So we can form that synergy. We can teach their community, and we can provide foods to their gatherings. And it can just create win-wins every single way. And the business itself even has flexibility in terms of its structure. If it can be operated through a standard corporate model, or as a 501c3, or even as a PMA, a private member association. There's lots of different ways we can do this to make it a home run for the community, for the ones who are operating it. So please do reach out.
Mike, incredible presentation, my friend. Thank you so much for your effort in putting this together. I know it's been you and a team of people, but what you have organized here is incredibly thoughtful. It is obviously something that you can see. I can see this in my mind's eye now. I understand how much value this will add to a community. And this is, I've heard about it. Obviously, I work with Food Forest Abundance, but I have not saw this portion yet. And it just makes logical sense. It is something that is extremely well functionally designed. The permaculture principles are highly visible, so to speak, right? It's the layers of stacking functions are everywhere, and just well done to you and the team.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it was a team effort, definitely, and I know that this idea and this design has been living, in my heart for a long time, as well as many others in the group. So thank you to everyone who helped put this together. And yeah, we're just excited to see this coming soon to a community near you. And so before we wrap up, with you in what some of the things you specialize in with Food Forest Abundance, do you want to just give a quick talk about that as well, just as we kind of wrap up here? How you currently live completely off grid. You've got a number of obviously emergency preparedness and survival skills. Why don't you just quickly review some of the things that you offer to teach our audience before we sign off? Sure. Thank you for that, Matt. Yeah, so I provide emergency preparedness and homestead consultations. I've led a number of trainings on the matter, and it's really my mission in life to educate and equip and empower others to become self-reliant. So yeah, I've taken a long journey from growing up in the belly of the beast, so to speak, outside of Washington, D.C. in Maryland. And I knew I had to get out of there and get closer to nature, which took me into the Southwest, where I really started my homesteading journey out there in the high desert. And we actually had a beautiful off-grid property situated between Albuquerque and Santa Fe, New Mexico. And we were building a straw bale construction. We had the building plans done. We had everything done, and we're breaking ground when the scamdemic hit. And so that triggered us to think about where we want to raise our children. It quickly became no longer a place where we'd want to raise our children. And through that process, it was really a learning opportunity and an opportunity for me to assess the country, assess where I want to be, where is going to be the most high odds of success for my family. And that's another layer of these consultations, that not only do I want to help people design their homesteads for success, but maybe you are like where I was in my life, or where Matt just was, where you're living in the city and you're trying to get out. And just booking a consultation to talk through that, to talk through where you're going and what you're looking for when you get there. If I had just moved across the street, I'm in a valley. And if I was across the street, I'd be in the shade. And with no power out here and relying on solar energy, if you're in a canyon and you're not thinking about your southern exposure, you're setting yourself up for failure. So just having these little knowledge nuggets for how you can really set yourself up for success from the get-go is extremely important. It's going to save you time. It's going to save you money. And it would be my honor to help you do that, to help your family be successful. And when we're talking about the emergency preparedness piece, just briefly to let you know, we don't approach that through the lens of fear or division. We're not trying to get you to point your gun at your neighbors or put up fences and disconnect yourself from the community. What it is really looking at the first step on your journey towards self-reliance. So an annual garden can provide you food in a single season. But if you gain the knowledge and skills to find food in your area, to know how to construct your own shelter, to look at putting together a food storage system to last your family, that's an immediate yield. So that's taking care of security for your family immediately. You don't even have to wait a single season. So again, it would really be an honor and a pleasure to help you find preparedness for yourself and your family.
Well, Michael, man, it's so exciting to work with you and to see the value you're adding to the world through your knowledge and the experience that you have. It's been an honor to have you on the jimPgale show with us today. Thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you for this remarkable presentation and for the thoughtful design you and the team have put into these Freedom Farm Academies. And to all of our audience out there, thanks for tuning in again. You know, we're extremely grateful that you have time to expend every day, or I guess invest. And we're thankful that you choose to invest it with us. So remember to like, subscribe, share with your friends if you got some value out of this. Keep coming back. We promise to continue to deliver the very best content we can and value to you, our audience. And if what you heard today inspires you at all, please, again, reach out. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to collaborate and help to bring food forests everywhere, because we know as we grow food and put that back into the hands of the people, it creates a whole new layer of freedom that we all deserve. And abundance is already here. It's just a matter of grasping it. So again, thank you for tuning in to the Jim Gale Show. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you for tuning into the show. You can check out more episodes on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and your favorite podcast apps. Check out our show notes for any websites linked to this episode, including where to connect with us on social media.
We appreciate you dropping by today. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you'll be updated with each episode.
And visit us at thejimgaleshow.com to check out all of our exclusive content. We appreciate you dropping by.